This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. Brought to you by the Fort Hall School of Government, broadcasting from Nairobi, Kenya. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning, but we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 1st of October 2019, and I am 2J.
I am 2M.
And I am GK. Happy New Month, guys.
Happy New Month.
Happy New Month.
Pinch and a punch. Did you not say that in school?
No, we didn't.
Oh, okay.
I didn't go to a group of schools
Oh
like
my
she
goodness,
did.
this again.
Well, here are the headlines in case you missed them. In the Star, guys, focus. We have a show.
Sorry.
In the Star, how Uhuru wants MPs to increase your debt burden.
Oh, wow.
The Standard, will BBI deliver Uhuru and Raila handshake deal?
Yeah.
And in the Daily Nation, puzzle of missing 5.6 billion shillings at NSSF.
Yes.
Wow.
Shall we begin with BBI?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the Standard is still there.
Yes.
on BBI. I think
This is a regurgitated headline from yesterday. I feel like they just changed up some of the words and then presented it afresh.
But let me tell you, if I owned the Standard and I wanted to be part of the executive premiership, I would put this headline here for days.
And the Standard, we know their owners.
Okay. I just realized what you're trying to say. I think for me, as a Mwananchi, I just want a constitution that speaks to
you.
national interest.
Yeah.
Yes.
So is BBI for two people?
That's
Yes,
very
it
true.
is. Let's call a spade a spade.
Elite consensus.
Elite consensus, I think that's what we've said in the past.
Yes.
You know, we need to have people coming together, and these two guys, they've been fighting for a long time. So give Raila what he wants.
And I think there's nothing wrong with that. But also, I think there's a man called William Ruto who must be very careful. Because there's a guy called Eden Duale. And Eden Duale was seen yesterday giving his views to BBI. And he said he supports it. And that is because he thinks the Somalis for one day or another will have a shot at leading this country, not through direct vote, but through parliament.
I mean, the census is going to tell us how many they are, right?
Absolutely.
However, we're going to toss a Standard, and this is why. If you checked our Twitter poll today, the headline that we presented on the poll is different to what we physically have right now. So what's happened is that Standard Digital, instead of having this BBI-related one, their headline was actually in relation to the security lapse to blame for the ferry death, what happened yesterday. And so for inconsistency,
we're tossing it automatically.
Pick a headline.
But we do have a three-part criteria that we will use to judge the other two headlines. We will ask whether it is topical or speculative, whether it is monotonous or groundbreaking, and whether it is thoughtful or just plain lazy.
Yes, absolutely.
So we have Uhuru wanting, apparently, to increase your debt burden. Now, the story here is that there's a bill in Parliament, and they basically want to remove the fact that you would have to go to Parliament first to borrow some money.
That's so scary.
Listen, having come from Rwanda, I think what they do need to set up is a debt management unit.
And what exactly does that entail?
That just means that they're gonna, so before you borrow any amount of money, there's basically people from different departments, from the Ministry of Finance, from the Central Bank, that are checking the situation. They're saying, listen, can we afford to do this as a country?
Do you think that would work here?
I think
I feel like all the ministries would just be like, yes, let's borrow more.
No, I think it has to.
Let me tell you people what needs to happen. I think Uhuru Kenyatta needs to buy all the media in this country. Buy out the Aga Khan, buy out the Star, and buy out the Standard.
So that?
Because the media are going to be a stumbling block to his legacy. Who said borrowing, even getting to 60% of GDP is bad? For you to become a first world country, you need to make some rules.
But 2M, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul is not making this country grow.
It's already against the law to borrow so that you do recurrent expenditure. Now, the other day I was watching a Nigerian guy who has been doing a special on Kenya. He has a blog. This guy is called Tayo. And Tayo has gone through the entire breadth of this country. And he said, what a beautiful, majestic, progressive country that you guys have. Kenya is a construction site, and it's a fantastic. And you know, you see the Nigerians commenting there. It says all of us must move to Kenya because those guys have 8 hours of power rationing every single day.
And listen, and Kenya is growing. Kenya is in a really positive place. No one denies that. We just want to borrow for the right reasons, and we also want to know what is the economic philosophy of this government.
Tell us why before you start borrowing.
And I think no one will have an issue with
my two things, just my two piece. One, this is misleading. This headline. Uhuru does not want to increase our debt burden.
Yes. I'm saying even if he does, what is the
No,
problem?
but I think it's misleading for them to attribute it to him.
Yes.
And second of all, let me give you a final thought before the final thought.
Thank you.
Studies have shown that if your GDP ratio increases above 60%, your economy actually slows growth by 2% annually.
Let me tell you, Japan's GDP, debt to GDP is 200%. Yeah, 200.
We will continue this offline, but
can we toss
it? Okay. So on the Daily Nation, puzzle of missing 5.6 billion at NSSF.
Where did it go?
So more doom and gloom here. But basically, according to the Auditor General report of 2017-2018, there are some monies that have not been remitted by employers. So the employees make their contributions and they're supposed to be matched. That hasn't happened. A lot of the 5.6 apparently is penalties. So they keep, and that's what has made this figure very high. However, I know you have issues with Auditor General.
You see, the Auditor General, Ouko, now he's left office, he once told us that, there was a problem with Eurobond 1 and 2. The money could have been mismanaged. And then 2 years later, the man recants his statement. He said, sorry, I was wrong. Now, here's a process. I would think Auditor General walks into NSSF buildings, he goes and says, I want to audit your accounts. And then he's told, this is how much, 5.6 billion has not been matched by employers. And he said, because there's no documentation, let us put it as it's a query. And the nation go there and they say it's missing. Now, at what point, at what time did the NSSF have within the week to go to every employer in this country and ask for supporting documentation?
So simply what you're saying is that it's not missing. What happened is when the Auditor General went to go do his audit, the documentation that would account for whatever the issues were, they did not have it at the time. And so instead of waiting, you explained it quite,
I'm saying it's plausible. That's a plausible scenario.
I think Prof was actually telling us that 70% of queries are as a result of documentation not being there at the time of the Auditor General.
So it doesn't necessarily mean that there's foul play.
Yes, absolutely.
Do we keep this? Do we toss it? Can we give it to the Daily Nation?
I think as much as it's negative and a bit misleading, it lifts the veil of ignorance.
No, I agree with you that we should keep it because the media are fantastic at lying to us. And because we have a huge population of a bewildered herd, people have managed to be convinced that money has disappeared.
All right.
Well, there we go. The Daily Nation gives us winning headline. I'm not sure what criteria 2M has used, but we have it. On to our next pieces, the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. About that. Where we also have a 3-part criteria that we use. We ask ourselves if it is humorous or dry, whether it is satirical or pessimistic, and whether it is effective or just plain lazy. So if we begin with the Daily Nation.
Dula.
Yes.
More Kibra.
Yes, we're still in Kibra.
More Kibra. It's a caricature of Baba himself and his top limousine. And he seems bewildered, like the herd I just spoke about. And on top of him is a coming down swatting Mariga and Ruto. And they're swatting down from helicopters. And they're swarming Raila's limousine. And Raila is so shocked. And they think they're headed to Kibra.
They're heading to Kibra,
Yes.
What's the caption?
The caption there is, do we have your attention now?
And truly it is the politics of attention. I think Kibra has never seen so much fanfare.
Absolutely. And let me tell you, we might just be surprised. William Ruto could just win Kibra. And the reason we say that is because this man could just spend 10% of his 2022 campaign.
He's risking it all.
Yes, he's risking it all. But can you imagine?
We can only hope it pays off.
I have a feeling and I have a crazy thought that Kibera is just a decoy. William Ruto could be saving for a position that does not exist by 2022.
Oh, wow. Well, you can gain all the attention and lose all the respect.
Absolutely.
All right, let's take a look at the star.
The star?
Ozone.
Caricature of, actually it's a drawing.
There we go, you're learning.
I've always been learning, Nikki. It's the drawing of
a goose.
A goose that's being nyongwed. It's being strangled. Being squeezed by the state. And they should have not even put the Kenya one here. They should have put the KRA flag.
Because that's actually what it is.
Because not every Kenyan wants to nyonga.
But there's some logos on the goose.
Yes, the logo is Sport Pesa and Betting. And the Mayais have broken.
Golden gooses,
Yes, and I'm so against this crackdown. And so Betting and Sport Pesa said, we are actually shutting down operations because of a hostile regulatory environment.
People have said doing business in Kenya has become an extreme sport. However, the government is not without its reason, right? If you're going to abide by market rules, then you pay your taxes.
Yes, exactly.
Is Boro saying, this guy for KRA, is he saying that SportPesa and betting will be the first companies in this country to ever not pay taxes?
However, they have shut down on their own volition.
Exactly.
Yes. Is that not so?
I think the point is they have so much money, and you can see it in the way they sponsored Formula One, they're sponsoring teams in the UK. What are they contributing to Kenya?
Very good question. The Kenya Premier League has been sponsored for a tune of about almost 500 million shillings. Three Kenyan teams in the Premier League have been sponsored, I think, to a tune of 200 million shillings. That rugby team that goes for sevens, an entire circuit, has been sponsored for $1.2 million every single year. Let me tell you, that is not small money.
We hear you. And also, SportPesa and Betting and all those other people have something to gain from that exposure. They're not doing it out of the goodness.
I think you were mentioning earlier, even the UK government has condemned the actions of SportPesa and Betting alike.
Yeah, but they are not a charity.
My thing is, if you're going to play by the rules of a free market, then you have to abide by the rules of tax
Yesterday, a lady from the AU wrote and stood in front of cameras and said, the Kenya government, especially KRA and Treasury, must have policies that give tax rebates to local companies.
Yes.
If you're going to give Muzungu local rebates and tax rebates and tax incentives, you might as well give to the local companies. They're the majority.
Very well. Finally, in the Standard, we have Kaso. Gado is still meeting. Today is not your day to work.
I think someone at Treasury is throwing them.
All right, finally.
Caricature of the fancy governor, Mike Sonko, and he's on his phone, seated on the throne.
Yeah.
And
board meeting.
And his handler there, his caption there is, "They are not running late, sir. You fired all of them, remember?"
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen this visual before.
Yes.
Yeah.
With Ndula?
I think it was Ndula, With the table where it was retired, left. Yeah.
Yes.
I think
of all Kaso's cartoons, this is the best.
Really?
Yeah, because this one doesn't look like he drew from Mr. Kamau's.
Oh my goodness. I think though, for a lack of originality, we're going to toss it.
So do we not have a winning cartoon? Or?
I don't think we do. I'm kind of meh with all of them.
Nah, I don't think. No, this one wins.
The goose?
Golden Goose?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there we have it. Ozone gives us our winning cartoon.
Yes. Winning cartoon.
Treasury is just ringing.
And what is our final thought?
And now our final thought, inspired by a book entitled Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. And it's a memoir by the creator of Nike, right? This man's called Phil Knight. And I like this man because he has sponsored Kalenjin runners for a very long time.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yes.
Yeah, summary.
Oh, that was it. Okay, I thought there was more. Yeah, so this week we're going to be looking into entrepreneurs and innovations and that kind of stuff. And so today, as you said, Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, a memoir by the creator of Nike. So a shoe dog, the definition of one, is a person who loves to make shoes. I think it's quite an interesting hobby to have. So I think it comes from calling someone a dog. A dog is a person who's really inspired and really gets into something that they love. And so as the creator of Nike, he calls himself a shoe dog.
Okay.
So Phil Knight was 24 years old, and he had just returned home from doing his master's degree at Stanford and serving in the U.S. Army for 1 year. So the year is 1962, and he's fixated on something he refers in the book as this crazy idea. And he keeps saying that over and over again. I had this crazy idea. And it's based on a project that he did at Stanford that started as an everyday assignment, but then became a complete obsession. So in this report, he had looked at how Japanese cameras had taken over the camera industry that had previously been dominated by the Germans. And so he argued in his assignment that Japanese running shoes could do the exact same thing. And he said that Japanese running shoes could take over the market. So he decides that he's going to pursue this idea. And he's going to travel the world and end up in Japan to go and find some Japanese shoes to sell to Americans. And so this is when we begin to see the beginnings of this tenacity that he has, even though the odds are completely against him. So you have these few signs. When he's giving this presentation in class, he says in the book that his classmates greeted his passion and intensity with sighs and vacant stares. So at the end of the assignment, he expected people to ask questions.
It was not inspiring.
Not inspiring. People looked at him like, what?
Yeah.
Japanese shoes?
Yeah.
Number 2, when he gets back from college, he has to convince his dad to bankroll this idea he has. His dad was the ATM.
Yes.
But his dad, he describes him as being conventional.
Yeah.
He loves Jesus, he loves a good house, his wife, and just the basic things.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's very risk averse. It's okay, we love Jesus, God is good, okay?
We were worried for a second. I'm like,
essentially, he's describing his dad. He's describing his dad as being risk averse, and so he has to try very hard to convince his dad to bankroll this crazy idea. Number 3, there's this historical bias. So if you remember, America had gone to war with Japan. You know, we have all these activities that happened during the Second World War. So his grandmother reminds him of the war with the Japanese, and he says, "Don't you remember the Japanese tried to take over the world? They're going to try and kill you, and they're going to gouge out your eyes." So you have this bias in his family about the Japanese. And then the fourth thing is that at this time in the 60s and 70s, running is not a thing. It's not the kind of thing that you see now where people do it leisurely. So people would actually mock and ridicule people who they would see running. So he's trying to get into this business to sell running shoes to people who don't understand running as a leisurely activity.
Absolutely.
Nevertheless, he decides to go to Japan. And he meets with this company called Onitsuka and convinces them to partner with him in the US. So he returns home in 1963 after sending a message to his dad. He sends a message to his dad and says, please send over $50 for the shoes. And of course his dad at the ATM sends the $50.
Bank of Dad.
Bank of Dad.
Treasury.
Yes. But he gets home in 63 expecting for the box of shoes to have arrived and to start selling them. But they don't arrive. So he decides that he's going to go back to school and he becomes an accountant.
Absolutely.
1 year later, in 1964, the box of shoes finally arrive and things begin to pick up. And we see this beginning of his company.
Absolutely.
So in the first year, they made sales of worth $8,000. By 1968, $15,000. 1969, $300,000. 1971, $1.3 million. And today, 2019, they make their sales are worth $11.8 billion.
Wow.
And so this guy's slogan, what he says, is grow or die. So he had all this adversity hitting him, head on. And he just said, I'm just going to grow or I'm going to die. And I think it was a very interesting, mentality that he had.
Keep pushing. 11.8 billion. That's the worth.
Yes, the sales.
GDP of an East African country.
Oh, God.
But I won't say.
Yes.
My biggest takeaway from this book is this, guys. And he says, start before you're ready. And the story is told, that's the way you've said. He goes to Japan, and as he's there, he calls this Onitsuka people and says, I'm an American company, I want to come and see your shoes. And they all line up in the boardroom, and they come to see this American established company. The guy shows up there, he sits, they're on that side, he's on this side. And they ask him, what's the name of your company? And he thinks, he says, Blue Ribbons.
He made it up in the moment.
He made it up.
He had no idea.
Yes, but do you know why he said Blue Ribbon? Because the Blue Ribbon is the awards he used to get back in high school.
When he was running.
Now he says, okay, are you going to put an order? Yes, I'm going to put an order. For how many? About a couple of thousand shoes. Now these shoes are called Tiger, and he reckoned that if he sold Tiger in the US, it would become a popular brand. And and then he said, I have made 1,000 orders of shoes, and they don't have any money to back it up. And say, okay, so I'll figure it out. Long story short, father sends him $50,000, and then later on he goes and he signs a partnership with his former coach. But my biggest takeaway is this, what faith can do. And he has a good quote. He says, have faith in yourself, but also have faith in faith. Have faith in faith. Not faith as others define it. Faith as you define it. Faith as faith defines itself in your heart.
Wow.
Okay, wow, all right.
That is very deep of Phil Knight. My takeaway from the book was 2 or 3 things. Fail fast. So he had this thing where he was like, if I'm going to fail, let me fail quickly so I can take those lessons and move on to the next thing. And he's like that even with Nike. He was like that with Blue Ribbon. He was like, let me fail quickly so I can move on and use those lessons.
Absolutely.
And he would say it's worth shooting for. If Blue Ribbon went bust, I'd have no money, I'd be crushed, but I'd also have some valuable wisdom. So here he says, wisdom is an asset. It seems intangible, but it's an asset nonetheless. And it's the one that justifies the risk that you take as an entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
And then he says that instead of running from discomfort, so like instead of, he would be he would be met with a lot of challenges between the shoes coming and all that. He said he wouldn't run away from it, he would confront it. And this is sort of what we call the growth mindset. That you don't, it's important for you to fail, learn, overcome, start again, right? And the next thing I think I learned from him was seek a calling and not a career.
Absolutely.
So he believed in the power of running and in the power of sports in changing individual lives.
Absolutely.
And so he thought Nike, or the initial shoes he was bringing in, could change people's lives.
Absolutely.
And you see how dedicated he was to that. Because when he actually left on his journey to Japan, the first pit stop he made was in Hawaii. And he said, in order to bankroll this time I want to stay in Hawaii, he started selling encyclopedias. But he realized very early on that he was a terrible salesman and he didn't know how to do it. Then he goes and he becomes an accountant, and even that is not fulfilling to him. So he always ends up running back to this Nike thing.
And when he sells shoes, he finds he can sell them with ease, and it's because he loved what he was doing. And then the last one, I don't know if people will take this seriously, don't tell people how to do things. Right? And so he modified and defied the traditional views of management. So he told you what you needed to do, but he didn't tell you how to do it.
Absolutely.
But then the caveat here is you have to find the right people, the right employees to carry out.
Absolutely.
People who are equally passionate. He actually says in the book that he was not the only shoe dog in Nike. The other shoe dogs were people who had disabilities, who were overweight, who were smokers. So you have people who are running this company whose philosophy is based on health and wellness and running, yet they're the complete opposite of that. But because they had so much passion, because they were shoe dogs as well, it worked out.
Doesn't this book remind you of The Alchemist? When the small Spaniard boy.
I feel like every book reminds you of The Alchemist.
No, it's just the fact I've mentioned it.
Possibly.
When guy goes back to Middle East, he had to go through so many journeys.
The lesson was within him. Always.
Absolutely.
And I think to bring it back home, as you were saying, Nike has sponsored a lot of our runners, Eliud Kipchoge, he was doing the under 2 hour mark. Under the marathon under 2 mark. And I think
for me, Nike is like Toyota. Everyone has owned a pair or knows somebody who owns a pair.
Yes, that's very true.
Fantastic. So on a day where we had a winning headline from the Daily Nation and a winning cartoon by Tuan from the Star, I want to leave you with this. Phil Knight, like many great entrepreneurs, was an avid reader. So reading is really important because it widens your scope. Knight had 3 heroes, Churchill, JFK, Kennedy, and Leo Tolstoy. He was fascinated by leadership or lack thereof. Under extreme conditions, he says, war is the most of extreme conditions. And he says business has those same parallels. So he says business is war without bullets. And I think I tend to agree. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can find us on TV. We are on Prime Free to Air, Go TV, and Star Times. See you tomorrow.